So we're pretty trained in providing safety and structure for the residents of Cater programs.
Ms. Smith? And
Yes.
I'm sorry, hold on, Ms. Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Remedies and then Ms. Smith.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Smith, you go first.
Yeah, I have a question. You say that you're willing to meet with the church. Would you object if we defer this case so that you can meet with them?
I have no objections with the meeting with the church. Now, what I will say, and I think I mentioned this in my opening remarks, is that unfortunately, behavioral health, whether we're talking about addictive disorders or mental health, usually presents itself with stigma, and there's a lot of myth and concern, unnecessary concerns about those that suffer from mental health and substance abuse. Now, I'm not real sure, and like I said, I'm more than willing to talk to anyone that's willing to listen to what we have to say as it relates to addictive disorders. Now, what I can say, and I know personally, in fact, one of my ex-program directors that was over some of CADA services has a child that's in school over at Word of God School. She's a addiction therapist. In fact, she's the director, I think, of clinical services at the New Day Recovery Center now. So I do encourage people to have conversations with those folks, especially, not taking my word for it. There's someone that's a parent that has a child in that school that's trained to do the same things that I do, and she used to work for CADA programs up until about 6 months ago. We have counselors that I've personally trained have worked for me that are members and trained therapists that attend Word of God Church, that understands behavioral health and addictive disorders. So I am willing to have conversations with whomever. I'm not real sure that I'm going to adequately address, because if it's not this particular environment or this particular neighborhood, I think that I'd be coming up here making the same pitch or the same plea for providing services in another neighborhood. I followed MPC, and there are several other new facilities that have just opened up in town. I think one is New Day Recovery Center, and the other one was the Resilient House. And of course, I followed the local news where there were issues with citizens in Shreveport, Louisiana, concerned about folks bringing substance abuse programs within their community, although they say they support these services. Not real sure if I can fix that. I can have a conversation. I'll talk on my way out of here.
I'm talking about meeting directly with them. I heard you say about your 30 years of experience and all of that good stuff, but I'm just concerned about that question I asked you. It was deferred.
I am more than willing to talk to the church or anyone else. Yes, ma'am. Now, what I will say, and I know there was concerns about fencing and the proximity between this particular facility and the church. There's a significant distance between our treatment facility or those particular buildings and that school. Now, I'm not real sure what activities take place as far as outside activities with the children. I just can't speak to that. But like I said, there's a significant difference between the two buildings. And also, Willis-Knighton, the Addiction Recovery Center provides services within that particular district of Shreveport. They've been in operations for more than 20 years. So we're not the only ones that's pulling up in that particular district of Shreveport trying to provide addiction services.
All right, Mr. Remedies.
Now, is this property, is CADA going to lease this property, y'all going to purchase?
We're looking to purchase it.
Okay, and that's kind of and there's a reason for my question.
Okay.
So if I guess I'm assuming the sale is contingent upon approval.
It is.
Of this. Okay. Now, to I understand you don't want to defer, and I can understand why, because sometimes it may never be good, your answers may never be, good enough for what the concerns may be, but would you at least enter into a discussion with the school to talk about a fence, some sort of buffer between the school and what you guys are doing? Would your agency or your
Well, I'm the ED, so I'm kind of the
Yes,
guy
sir.
that would make that decision, yes.
Okay, so you would talk about that. I'm not
Sure.
obligating you anything, but just to, I guess, work together amicably and because I think you've been through this before. I can tell by the way you're addressing it. So, but we I think when everyone gets to the table, sometimes there can be a solution where everyone can, agree to move forward. So that's all. That's the only question I had was about that. So thank you very much.
Right.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Young?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Parks, is that right?
Rose.
Rose. Sorry about that. When we've done several of addiction centers in the last year. We've had several
Right.
come before us. One was turned down, the other one was approved. The one that was turned down actually relocated to a closed facility and reopened at that closed facility.
Right.
The one that had the greatest success, the one on 70th Street out just west of Pines Road, they spent months doing outreach, months of outreach. They did months of outreach before they even started the application process or in the midst of the application process, which gave them opportunity to answer a lot of the questions and concerns that the community had. There were still some people that were opposed to it, but by far, much more of the community came and wrapped its arms around the concept and idea of what they were trying to achieve and do. And I would venture to say that their clientele base is probably a little bit higher risk, maybe. I'm not really sure that would be a fair assessment, but in my opinion, it may be than what your clientele base would be. My point is a deferral wouldn't necessarily be in the worst interest you would have. It would give you the opportunity to explain better to the people who have concerns that you've not had a conversation with yet of exactly what you're trying to do and how the impact would be. Because their concerns are not alleviated at this moment, that I can tell. And so outreach in these cases, when you have something that could potentially be controversial coming into a community, is by far one of your better options, is to get those people on board as to be having those people against you. And right now, I see there's quite a few people in the community against you, and that makes it difficult. Even if you get it past this board, you've got the next one to go through because they'll appeal it, and you've got to go there. This is a zoning change, so this is not a carte blanche case. It is a down zone change. So you may be wiser to request that, but I cannot tell you what to do as an applicant. That is strictly your call.
Well, one of the things that I have to take in consideration is that we have a purchase and sell agreement that we are under with the seller. So I do have to take that in consideration that our timeline started some time ago.
I got it. I understand. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, no one else? Thank you. I would say, just as a question, I've heard a lot from, particularly from more from the opposition, but there was a statement in my documents that said the residents must not be actively withdrawing from alcohol and/or drugs and must be medically and psychiatrically stable to be in this residence. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So if that is the case, I don't know. I was just wondering, because if that's the case, I think maybe a lot of the fear that Nancy and others may have been referred to may have come from maybe I'm assuming maybe everybody didn't know that the persons who were there, because I'd like to believe that behavioral health treatment is not the equivalent of criminality.
Right. Exactly.
And that to do so, to equate those two would certainly be way off base from any perspective. And that's why I was thinking maybe the fear may be more in line with the ages, and I was concerned about whether it was a middle school, high school there, they may have the same reaction, because my assumption was that it was just about the age of children, because these children who were there were not children who were withdrawing from alcohol or drugs or some other addiction, but they must necessarily be medically and psychiatrically stable to be in the residence at all. And I didn't know if everybody was aware of that, but I did see that.
I agree. Typically, criminal behavior associated with substance abuses is typically during the active use of a chemical. You know, usually those that are not prone to criminal behavior don't participate in those behaviors unless they're actively using. The participants in our program are guys that are not in situations where they're in withdrawal or detoxing for substances. These guys are already physically and psychiatrically stable. Of course, you know, we're dealing with adolescents. You know, adolescents have typical adolescent behavior. But it's our position that it's not criminal behavior. You know, these guys, like I said, they're monitored and screened for issues related to criminal history, psychiatric histories, and even medical problems that may present a risk for us as an agency.
All right. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I'll have one for staff, but not.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Questions for staff?
Mr. Chair, thank you. This is going from a C2 and an OR to an R2, which is the appropriate designation, I assume, for the Residential Adolescent Treatment Center. If this was allowed to go through, what other entities could come in behind this if they didn't stay there long-term, 5 years and left, that could be in there? Could it be anything?
A duplex.
A duplex or something
Or a
along that line?
single-family home.
But a treatment facility would fall within the R2 category?
Yes.
It would not be considered like an institutional category or anything along that
No, sir.
line? It's kind of weird because in a hospital, that's more of an institutional.
Right, but this is residential care.
Residential
So it's a
care.
different animal from institution.
I think the distinction was important to get out.
Mhm,
that-
absolutely.
At least for me to understand that. So this would be more kindred to a residential home that's bound by the 1,000-foot barrier within subdivisions now? Is this
No, this does
similar?
not fall into the 1,000-foot
homes.
spacing issue.
Okay.
This is not a group home.
Would it be kindred to the same environment?
It may be kindred, but it's not the same category.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. That's all, Mr. Chair.
All right. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the application.
A second.
I have a motion by Mr. Joseph, a second by Mr. Cooper. Any questions?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor vote yes, all opposed no. So that passes 6-4-2 against. Our next case is case number C-17-18, a zoning request. Is the applicant present?
Hmm?
Good afternoon. Andy Craig, Moore and Associates, 1324 North Hearn, Suite 301, Shreveport 71107. I think a credit union's been on Uri Drive for quite a while, had a presence there. And they've, over a period of time, they've acquired some additional property. They don't have any immediate plans for the property, but they know eventually there will probably be some expansion there, parking lot or whatever. So they know to accomplish that, they would need to consolidate their zoning. So the two lots are, of course, R17 existing, and they'd like to request rezoning to the urban corridor commercial district to match the remaining property.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Craig? Thank you. Anyone here to speak in support of his application?
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is David Wadkey, and my address is 5310 Barberry Lane in Bossier City, Louisiana. I'm here representing Anika Federal Credit Union. As was mentioned, we're long-term tenants of the property on Uri Drive, and we're growing and we're running out of room in our current location. So at some point, we envision building an administration center adjacent to our current property and maintain this proper buffers just like we have now. Between the residential areas and ourselves. We continue to follow all zoning restrictions, but we're just running out of room, and we're trying to plan for the future when we'll be able to expand and continue creating more jobs in Shreveport Bossier.
All right. Any questions?
Those are all good things. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? If not, is there anyone in opposition to this application? All right. Commission?
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Andrews, a second by Mr. Joseph. All in favor, vote yes. All opposed, no. That item passes unanimously. Our next item on our agenda is case number C-18-18. A zoning request. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Board, thank you for your time and consideration. My name is Clark Bairnsfather, 2229 Betty Street, Shreveport, 71108. I'm here on behalf representing Ms. Willie Lou Schaefer Huckabee. We're trying to open a place of worship at 2326 Line Avenue. It was brought to our attention that the current zoning was RHU, and me not knowing exactly what that was, and then speaking with Ms. Huckabee, it seemed like that was a rather limited category and maybe not quite in line with everything else that was around it. So we were asking that y'all consider changing it to a CUC.
Yes, sir. All right, any questions? All right, thank you. Anyone else to speak in support of this application?
Good evening. I'm the pastor. My name is David Biddle. My address is 7110 Windburn Drive, Greenwood, Louisiana. And as Clark said, we're opening a place of worship. And got a man here. Stand up, Shorty. This is a man that's lived under a bridge for years, and he's been a deacon in our church. So I personally feel you can't go wrong with Jesus Christ, and so we ask that you honor whatever we're asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone to speak in opposition? Okay, Commission?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Smith, a second by Mr. Remides. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor vote yes, all opposed no. All right, that passes unanimously. Our next case is case number P-7-18. It's a zoning request. Is the applicant present?
Good afternoon. I'm Ricky Wood, Polaris Services, 3602 North Market Street, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71118. 71107. Very briefly, this rezoning property was rezoned when the Caddo Parish Commission adopted the UDC in December of 2017. For whatever reason, it was downzoned to the NA natural area. The owner has requested that it be rezoned to something more compatible with what it was prior to the adoption, which was RA. Through staff and information and meetings with them, recommended the RE, the residential estate. which for the surrounding neighbors would help them and be more respectful because the RE does not allow mobile homes. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right.
Oh, by the way, the owner is here if you have any specific questions for him.
Any questions? All right. Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else to speak in support of this application? Anyone to speak in opposition?
Mr.
Right.
Chair, motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Young, a second by Ms. Demeratu. Any questions? If hearing none, all in favor vote yes, all opposed no. And that passes unanimously. Our next case is case number P-8-18, a temporary use permit.
Ricky Wood, Polaris Services, 3602 North Market Street, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71107. It's an application submitted for a temporary use, which is allowable on the same piece of property that was just approved for the rezoning. The NA previous zone would not allow any temporary use of this nature. Information submitted in the application and working closely with the staff to answer questions, provide information for the facility, the site, the location, how far from residential areas, hours of operation, and things of that nature have been gone through and gone over. Be happy to answer any questions, and the owner of the property and the operator of the batch plant for temporary use are both here if you have any specific questions for them.
All right. You are aware that the staff has stipulated that the operations would adhere to the city's noise ordinance requirements?
Yes, sir, and that information has been looked up both for this property is in the parish, for both the parish and the adjoining property within the city for noise decibels and anything that may need to be done to restrict noise. I mean, I've seen these things operate. I mean, trucks make noise going up and down the road. There's noise. It's not constant noise, but you know, everything is mufflered that has that. Generators are running, power supplies are running. Anything more detailed than that, I'd have to defer you to the operator.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion by Ms. Tell me how to pronounce it correct.
DeMarteau.
Dave Marteau. Motion by Ms. Dave Marteau and second by Ms. Smith. Any questions?
Do we ask about opposition?
I'm sorry. No, they went with a motion before we did it all. Anyone to speak any of the support or opposition?
But just wanted to make sure.
All right. No support, no opposition speakers. Thank you. All in favor vote yes, all opposed no. Passes unanimously. That brings us to the end of our public hearings. Next on our agenda is old business. Old business. Any old business?
All right. I'm going to classify this as old business because it technically fits it. You know that back in your last meeting, you approved changes to the UDC, what they call Article 22 for wireless communications. Since then, there's been more feedback with the industry and working with the city attorney's office. We did have it scheduled for you to look at that at this meeting, but it was decided at the last moment to withdraw that and to do some more wordsmithing on that ordinance. You will now see that coming to you at your May 2nd MPC board meeting. We will re-advertise that, and we shall have it in a form that'll be workable. So there's some tweaks that will make it more, I call it a more perfect document to blend with what the city is trying to do on their end with their two other ordinances that they're proposing to approve. Hopefully at the same time the UDC amendment is approved. Any information we have on that we get ahead of time, we'll try to get that out to you before the meeting if possible.
All right. Any other old business? Our next item is new business. We have this Tier 2.1 financial disclosure statements.
Right. That's just a reminder, I have hard copies of the financial disclosure information that I passed out at lunchtime. This is just our attempt to keep you aware that you have about 6 weeks in which you have to have that document in. As board members, you're required by state law to do that. They have until May the 15th is the deadline, I believe. You can go online to find out what you did last year so you can update the information. But I just want to make sure that you're fully aware of that and that no one will say, well, I didn't remember that. So we just want to keep you guys all legit in the process, because I do understand that if you don't submit that information, they will come looking for you. So that's an important one. Yeah.
All right.
So.
You have any other? You still have any of the hard copies with you?
Yes, sir, I do, and in fact, I'm going to have Stephen provide you whatever copies you need if you need a copy of that. So, okay, the other new business is that we have been in discussions with the Chamber of Commerce in an attempt to create what we call a series of town hall meetings. The purpose of those town hall meetings would provide further input from the development and review and design community, as well as others that are interested, other citizens, to talk about the Unified Development Code. The Unified Development Code will have been in effect for a year come May the 15th of this year. After you've had something for about a year, you begin to understand what the moving parts are all about and the process and everything. So we thought this would be a good opportunity to work with the Chamber to have this town hall meeting, which is scheduled for April the 11th at 1 p.m. at the LSUS Theater facility on the campus there. I'll send out a reminder to you guys about this. That will be a panel in which the 3 officers of the MPC will be present, along with myself and Stephen. And the purpose of that meeting will be garner comments and information about the UDC. One of the things, in working with Tim with the Chamber, we've sent out a survey to the various businesses and business owners, as well as the design professionals, to be able to get them to give us some feedback ahead of time. We will have opportunities for people to make comments. The primary purpose of that first meeting will be is mostly a listening session and a clarification session, not necessarily to answer the questions at this first meeting. Then we will follow up with time for the staff to put together a research and do their work to respond to the questions and comments and concerns from the community, and then return several weeks later for another follow-up meeting where those answers to those concerns and questions will be presented. Then later, at a later date, as a third possible town hall meeting, we'll talk about the site plan procedures and process and get feedback from the development community, as well as design professionals who have concerns or interests about that process.
What time?
1 o'clock on April the 11th, a week from today, at LSUS in the theater. And I will send out a reminder about that by the first part of this coming week.
And I also would like to recommend that, well, Tim from the Chamber recommended, I know for those who will be on the panel, to try to be there by 12:30, so at 12:45 at the latest,
Right.
and so we can start at 1 o'clock.
Absolutely.
On dot. So want to make sure we try as much as possible to adhere to that as well.
And that is, Mr. Chairman, that is all of the new business I have.
Okay. Other matters to be reviewed by the commission. I had asked for, and I understood you may have had it at lunch.
Yes, we did.
I didn't, I'm sorry, I forgot about, I came up here looking and forgot it wasn't here, and so.
I have a copy of that information, and I can give that to you. As
Okay.
any other board member that would like to have it that wasn't able to attend.
Okay, okay. Could you, just for the record, make sure that you remind us of what it is exactly?
Well, basically what it is that we answered questions about the site plan review process and how it works, and what the average review time has been for site plan approvals. We looked at what happened before the implementation of the new procedures back in August of 2016, and then we looked at what's happened since January 1st of 2017, all the way to the present time. We also provided a some information that we think will be of value to understand some of the things that caused the delay we had back in December and January and February in terms of the slowdown in the approvals of the site plans. We give you a full explanation of what caused that and how that process has now been remedied, and what other initiatives we've taken to make certain that we don't have that kind of a delay again. We also provide you with a list of the contacts of the major departments and agencies that we work with for site plan review. You've got to understand we're just one of the deer in the forest, so to speak, because we collect the information, but we rely on engineering, we rely on the state transportation department to provide us feedback within a timely manner in order to provide that information to the applicants. We also provided you with a copy of and talked about a copy of what the average cost is per application type. And that was a question that some of our board members had asked about. What does it cost to do certain things? And so we wanted to make certain that we gave you that information and give you the accurate information so that you can present that to whomever you may be talking to or to the media.
All right. Thank you. I'll get a copy of that after the
Yes.
meeting. Okay.
I'll provide you with a copy as soon as the meeting is over.
Okay, thank you so much.
I need a copy.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that response.
Darren and Bessie and Windsor looking
Yes,
forward.
yes.
Thank you.
I made ample copies for everybody.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, Chair, board members' comments, any board members' comments? All right, I just heard Mark say that we could, that the information we had in this, in the handout he was going to give us, we could have that so we'd be aware of it, and we'd be aware of it just in case we needed to talk to anybody, including the media, about it. I want to just remind us that, well, I was called upon last week to speak to folks in the media about, I forget what it was about now, but about the MPC in general. And I hearken back to the this notion, and I would recommend maybe, I don't know if we need to amend our bylaws or do something different, because they clearly don't mean much, because in one of our previous meetings where we talked about the bylaws, we talked about who would speak to the media. And so I don't want in any way, shape, or form to seek to curtail anybody's ability to answer questions. I just think maybe we ought to address that in our bylaws, and perhaps even change or delete the portions which suggest that the chair will speak, and just perhaps allow everybody to speak to the media, because it's clearly what's happening. So, I mean, I just think that it would be prudent on our behalf not to have it in the bylaws if it doesn't apply to us. And I'm just open to your comment or response to that.
Well, we just voted that in, correct?
That's correct.
So that was on the vote, we voted that we wanted it in. So is there a way to enforce the bylaws is my question.
I don't think so. I think it's just a document of goodwill, and you'd have to do something yourself. It's really about that. So I just wanted to be sure if everybody was flexible, or if everybody was comfortable with what the bylaws already say, or do we need to change them so that they will align with our current, what we do already, you know? So I hate to have policies and procedures, but then have customs and practices that override those policies and procedures. Kind of a waste of time. So that was just my question. If it was your pleasure, we don't have to change it, but I'm just saying I thought that it may accommodate us better, and we don't have to have any frustration about it if we were to change it and make it just kind of wide open.
What section of that, of the bylaws was that in?
It's the one, not,
It's in our books here.
this is bylaws. I remember, I think we took it up and we were talking about,
Yeah, I
if I'm not
remember us
mistaken.
addressing it.
Yeah, we
I just
addressed
wanted
this.
to be specific in addressing the language. Let's see.
Where's the, I thought there was a table of contents.
The way I understood is that you can speak.
Oh, it's back here, rules and
You can't
bylaws.
speak on behalf of the MPC board.
Yeah, let's look
Let's
this up.
find this.
You could speak on for your own opinion, but not on behalf
Of other board members.
of other board members, like the chair or
Or any other-
anybody, or
any
the
other-
MPC board at all.
That's on page 3 of your bylaws, at the very bottom. This is making
The
reference.
G section?
Mhm. G.
Correct.
And that's to the members. Will speak for and represent the planning commission's views. This was for the chair, right?
Correct.
Okay. As necessary to the media and to the general public to express the position of the planning commission. The chair is encouraged to confer with executive director prior to making a release to the public. And then note, members may represent their individual positions to the media and general public, but not speak for nor represent the planning commission's views, MPC organizational views, and then refer to the social media policy. So, I mean, where was it specifically where someone on the board violated what section G to H was?
In the
There's
K-
this,
in
oh,
the
you got it?
KTBS interview, I mean, there's several. We hear the complaints, developers are coming to us. Who's us? They're telling us.
When there's two people sitting there, if that's what I said.
I'm just gonna tell you what I'm reading.
Yeah.
They're telling us they won't take their complaints to the members who support the executive director, Mark Sweeney. They fear their complaints will result in retribution from the MPC, and applications will never get approved. This is pretty, I mean.
It hurts when
yeah,
it's the truth. I mean,
Alan says that 4 members of the board, including Ronnie, Dale, and Bessie, identify the MPC executive director as the primary problem and want him out. I don't know if all 3 of those people agree with you. I don't know if they all said that or not.
I want you out, I'm gonna let you know you're out.
Well, you're-
I don't have to have nobody to tell the TV, if Bessie wants you out, I'm going to say, vote you out. You understand?
Absolutely.
So,
So, Mr. Young, did you in fact say this?
Absolutely.
And you spoke for Ms. Smith?
And I took what Ms. Smith had told me in past conversations.
Well, I think that's part of the reason the bylaws, I mean, you just don't
When
speak
I was
for
asked
other
a
board
direct
members.
question by the media, as
I'm
a
thinking
member
you
of
should
this board,
speak for
I think I
yourself,
have every
though.
legal right, and my responsibility
Just
as a
say
duly appointed
whatever
member
you
to
want
answer
to
his
say.
question, and I answered his question.
To speak for other people?
I just
Okay?
think when you're dealing with the media.
If I misspoke for Ms. Bessie, then I'll apologize for Ms. Bessie. I don't think I misspoke for Mr. Remedies or Mr. Colvin.
Well, maybe not, but I'm just saying in general, I think that's why we should be, when we're speaking to the media, don't speak for other board members or the views or perceptions of the board. Your perception may not be the same as my perception of complaints, for example.
And that
But you're-
implies the
but you're
whole conversation we're having
implying when
right
you're
now is whether or not.
talking to the journalist here, you're talking about our board as a whole. And I think that's,
Well, I think my answer was specifically directed not as a whole.
I'm
board as a
talking
whole.
about, no, I'm talking about the comment about our perception of the complaints.
may I
mean-
say this? I hear complaints,
No,
I'm
no,
gonna be
I think that's.
truthful, from everybody, even the people in Bossier. I came to you and I told you, I said, when it comes to those permits, you explained to me in detail that was not the truth. And I said when I was at the other one, if I have a question, I'm gonna go to you.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna tell you what I think about you. I told you that just the other day when I was here taking that test. And you explained to me all of that, what was said was not the what? The truth. You broke it down to me. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's the truth or a lie. I'm just being truthful with you because I don't know the procedures. But when I hear them saying it takes so long to get a site plan proved here, you told me, Miss Smith, that's not the what? Truth. Right?
That is
And I
correct.
told you at the last meeting, all of you, if I want to know something, I'm going directly to that person.
Absolutely.
And that's what I will do. I'm not gonna scratch my head when it's not itching. You don't have to say nothing. And if the news media come to Bessie Smith, I'm gonna know what to tell them myself.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I want to make that very, very clear.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Nancy, in
So-
response to your, I specifically stated to the reporter, specifically stated, this is what these people have told me, okay?
I mean, well,
The people who were developers, who are running
Right.
applications before us, that they do
That's
not
not-
want to reach out to y'all because they feel like.
well,
This
first
is,
of all,
that was
they
my
have.
direct,
But
Nancy.
that's not even true. I have met with them. They have reached out to me.
Well, they
I'm
have
aware
met
of
with
this.
me.
Nancy,
They met with
Nancy.
me.
And we've had multiple
That
meetings.
is the direct quote from those people,
But this
and that's
is
what I
why,
told the.
this is why the person who communicates with the media should be centralized in one person.
But
Because
by
this
that,
is
you,
not the
by
same
that you
thing.
say our other 8 appointments have no value, I
This is not
disagree with that
an
statement.
opinion.
And my voice will not be muted,
No, it
whether on
isn't.
this
This
board
is
or by
not,
the
this is
media,
not,
it will
whether
not
or
be
not
muted.
developers have met with me is not an opinion.
They have met
It's a
with
fact
Mrs.
or it
Smith.
isn't.
They probably, I mean, I don't have any
Develop,
issue
you see what
with
I'm
whatever
saying?
reason they told you or whoever else that they didn't want to talk to me.
Yeah, you don't
It's
have to be-
patently, perhaps true in their minds, not true to me. I may not be smart enough to deal with their issues. They may have gone to the people who they felt could get their issues done. But if that's the case, then I hope that their issues have been settled. And I have no issues with them choosing who they're going to call. But when I get called upon and questioned
Yeah.
by the media specifically and say, well, what did they say to you? And I say, no one has said a thing. Well, and you say, if I'm not mistaken, that I'm not listening. And if I'm not listening
did
and
say
nobody's
that.
calling me,
did
I
say
think I heard you just say that, it would be impossible for me, unless I'm eavesdropping
Right.
on your conversation or someone else's, it would be hard for me to respond if you know that they're not calling me at all. And then secondly, I think you were suggesting that I should rethink my service on this board if I'm not listening or something like that. All of those things, you and I have spent time in these meetings, and we foo-foo and kowtow and play. I'm not good at that. If I have an issue, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not gonna smile in your face and say things that it doesn't take much courage to say on camera, but you can't say to me directly. We've not said that one time. And so as a result, I'm saying to you, I think you have a freedom to speak and to say this. My only question was, when you say you're speaking for Dale, Ronnie, yourself, and Bessie, that's in direct violation of this, even the small print, which says, and then when you talk about, they think the problem is the executive director and want them gone, I think that would speak to personnel, right? And if that's personnel, I see that spelled out in this small print as well. That's not something that we would be on the news. That's just my opinion based on what we see here. Decorum is something totally different, but just based on what's in black and white, I'm thinking that either we need to, and all I've asked in this whole conversation was, do we want to keep it here or do we want to take it? I don't have any objection to anyone talking, except to the extent that it goes against what we've agreed upon as a group. If we will change the rules, then we don't have to have this issue.
As I recall,
That's all I'm
Mr.
saying.
Chair, we went over all this. I was fortunate enough to be on the committee. Thank you very much.
It's
We,
apparently a big
we
waste of
prepared them. They went to everybody. We had Rick John. I think we pay him how much an hour to come here and sit. And not that I'm against the lawyers
Right.
being paid,
Right.
but we had him here and he sat here and we went through the whole deal. I think you had some very constructive comments. I think those comments were etched into the draft that we had and they were revised. You know, and I think we're all savvy people here, and I love being on the MPC. I love watching us get stones hurled at us. I don't like wasting time because it's all I have. I'm 46 and I'm not getting a second younger. And every second that I spend here, and I keep saying this, every second I spend here, I'm losing money. You know, so if we're gonna do this, if we're gonna play this game, let's play it right. You know what I mean? If we want to be on the team, we be on the team. If we don't, I don't think anybody is gonna be upset if anybody leaves, even if that somebody is me. You know what I mean? Otherwise, what are we doing?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'll close with this. I've been barraged over the last 2 years with not only complaints about the MPC, but the city departments as well. If those entities don't come to that meeting next week with the same level, then it's their problem. If they can't convey to you next week when they start meeting and convey to Mr. Sweeney about the sense of urgency, then I've done my due diligence of what I can to represent them chewing me in the ear, and I know they've been to Ronnie and everybody else. So the ball's in their court from this point on. If they are that concerned about it, they need to make sure they allay those concerns on the 11th.
We
But
are
I represent
aware
to
of
you.
the
I represent
concerns.
to you this, and I live in a factual world. My living is earned with facts. What can be proven, what is not proven, as opposed to as opposed to conjecture and speculation and whatnot. These gentlemen went through the great arduous task of providing us at lunch, which we saw, and I hope they get you a copy and get you a copy, Windsor, because it refutes so many of the things that they put you guys on the spot to have y'all answer questions about. You know what I mean?
No, which is like what?
In terms of the delay and the turnaround on these applications, in terms of the cost for the permits.
Yeah, but
You know
see,
what I'm
that's a
saying?
skewed number.
Right. Right, but what
You
I'm
got the
saying
accurate
is, if there's objective information out there, what's gonna happen at this meeting, I guarantee you, because it's happened at the ones that I've sat in with Nancy on. You know, I think a lot of it, and you guys are business people, I think a lot of the people's concerns right now is, for whatever reason, business is down. You know what I mean? If business is down, that doesn't necessarily mean it's down because of the MPC. It's just down. Lawyers are losing jobs. It's not because the Supreme Court changed rules on lawyer advertising.
Do something about it.
They're hiring computers to do what low-level associates did. So people aren't getting jobs. You know what I mean? So I think that we should all have, and if we're gonna bandy things around in these meetings, we need to be speaking from the same sheet of music or singing from the same sheet of music. You know what I mean? That's all.
Well, I have a comment too, but if you look at what it costs to bring an application to this board, and you only look at what the fees are charged by this agency, and not look at the professional fees, and not take into account all the professional fees of the attorneys. And Mr. Jackson, I'm trying to address when you were laughing a while ago when I was saying something. That would just show your ignorance of the process that our applicants go through, which is when you pay an architect or an engineer or an attorney to go to a pre-meeting, to go to the second meeting, and to come down to this meeting, and all the professional services where they draw all of the site plans and all of that.
Okay.
So that's when I say the numbers are skewed, and you guys are so absolutely sure of yourself. But I know
I didn't put any
this
numbers together,
is-
so I'm not sure who you're talking about.
What's that?
You said, are they sure of themselves? Because it couldn't be me, because I don't put the numbers together.
No.
They may be
I'm
skewed, but I
saying
didn't
that I
skew
made
it.
that comment, and you're laughing as if
You had the
think
accurate
it's
numbers.
comical.
I
that
thought it
I'm-
was comical that
But I'm
their
just
numbers
telling
are
you that
automatically
you don't know.
screwed,
You've
and
never
your
filled
numbers
out
are
an
absolutely.
MPC application. How much property have you developed?
10 acres?
I'm just telling you.
10 acres?
So you've developed 10
I
acres,
got
and you
5.5
understand.
million right now on Jewel. You're welcome to pass by when you leave here.
That's fine. I'm just
And
telling you
another
that
four
you
and a
don't
half on
understand
Hearn
the
Avenue.
process
I
that
mean,
they're
I
going
never,
through if
listen,
you're
I
laughing
don't
at
want
that
to,
statement.
I don't want to confuse the fact that you are at least the smartest on this board. I don't even want to be in competition with you. I'm just saying to you that I thought what you said by simply saying their numbers are skewed, I thought that was laughable. Because what you just explained was not numeric. You started talking about the lawyers coming in, these things, and the numbers of those are what exactly?
What's that?
What are the costs of the lawyers coming in, those things?
They are the professional services
saying, what are
costs.
they?
What's that?
What are those costs? So how much does it cost for this to happen?
Well, depending on how complicated the project is.
Right.
What I'm telling you.
So it's not the same for everybody, is what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay. I think that was the point, that there's no cookie cutter way of saying that the numbers can be skewed based on your
No, but
opinion.
But did the numbers take into account all of the professional services that go into that? And I think
You want to answer that, Mr. Sweeney or Mr. John?
Well, here's the thing.
No, he's not going to answer it directly.
Ronnie,
I'm asking him, not
Okay.
you.
Why don't
You
you
didn't have numbers,
let him?
so I'm see if he has some.
Okay.
Because clearly you didn't have any. Go ahead.
We can only show you what the fee structure is about the average fee structure that there is within the city and the parish. The cost for design or for any type of engineering work is always associated with any level of project, whether you're in Bossier or you're here. The variation in those costs may be depending on something as simple as the fact that Bossier doesn't require retention areas on their sites. We do, but that's a city engineering policy. All of this is tied together. The cost that Ronnie's talking about is a multiplier effect from many different sources and many different agencies. And so a professional engineer or designer has to go in and do those things. So That cost is a variable that goes up and down depending on the complexity of the project, the amount of investment that's required. And the whole purpose of the pre-application process, which erroneously was said cost $10,000 in public, was that it doesn't cost you anything for pre-application. You can come in with a drawing on a piece of paper that didn't cost you $10,000. And we put it up on the screen, and we ask all the city departments and the parish departments, what do you think about this? What are going to be the issues? That's free advice. No cost to the applicant. And yet, it's told to the media, it costs $10,000.
$10,000.
Now, why would you do that? Why?
See, the skew
Why-
is the lie.
why
That's
would
what
you
the
do
lie
that?
of the skew.
What's that?
Is it a skew that in fact you can get a free pre-application process that
No.
doesn't cost anything? That's
What
not true?
the complaints are specifically is that to bring a project to this board to see if it's even going to be approved can cost upwards of $10,000, and that's the problem.
That is
And
a
see, the
really
thing is, when
general
we go to this,
Really
meeting at
general
LSUS,
statement.
excuse me, can you show me respect? I'm not talking over
I'm
you.
trying,
If you want
Ronnie.
to look back at the bylaws, we talk about showing
Well,
one another respect. So,
I-
back to what I was saying is, when
Respect
we
is
go
a
to
relative
this,
thing.
what's that?
Respect is a relative thing.
Okay.
I just found it out last week.
Yeah, so when you go to this meeting next week and these 300 and something people that are gonna be there, it's gonna be, I'm just wondering what you guys, your response will be, because you'll no longer be able to act as if you live somewhere that everything is perfect.
Because that's the way we
And
act.
You're
We
saying
just
that the
said we
MPC
act
is.
like we live somewhere where everything is perfect.
Yes, you're saying that
That
there's
is
no
You're
problems.
fighting. You're arguing with us. That is not true.
No.
We
I'm
have
saying
been doing
that-
nothing but going to Mark and the staff and going in between him and some of the developers and taking these
And
complaints
architects
and solving them. We are addressing them. We are solving them.
Then why is there so many people
There's
upset if
not
you're
so
solving all
many
of the
people,
problems?
Ronnie. There's not so many people.
Are you gonna be at the meeting
We're
at LSUS?
also- I've been
She's
to
gonna be on
many
the panel.
meetings, and yes, I will be there.
You're gonna be there. Okay,
Do
so
you
all
see-
those people are gonna be wrong somehow.
So, Ronnie, how many people will come up and oppose a developer's application on occasion? Do we ever have that? Yes, the developers aren't the only people we are here to serve, okay?
Yeah.
So, and we are serving the
The
developers. I
communities.
cannot tell you how many hours of my time in the last 2 months I have devoted completely free. I have no property investments with these people to try and address their concerns productively, not
we
just
have.
fussing at the media and to do it, not just trying to completely
Have it.
disparage the NPC in the process. I would like to fix the problem, not just fire everyone. And I think it's working. We have all sorts of mechanisms in place now to address these problems. And I think education is a lot of it. I think that developers, half of it is their lack of understanding of the UDC, because it's new and it's not easy to understand. Some of the more savvy applicants, like I think Kevin Bryant, he does understand, he's very savvy with the UDC. Some other applicants aren't. So we're working to educate them. The master plan involvement, that's an important factor that not everybody understands. They don't have our master plan in Bossier. We're not Bossier. We're not synonymous with them. We have different issues. They have problems as well. And the developers say to me, some things are easier over there, but a lot of stuff is harder. So it's not right. And I think getting this My Government Online program in line is going to really help collaborate all of our agencies. It's going to give so much power
Transparency.
to the applicant, because they're going to be able to track themselves where their application is through the permit process. It's going to empower them immensely. They're not going to have to make phone calls and check on things. They're going to be able to tell. And that's huge. The mayor has met with them. They've sent representatives down to Baton Rouge. How much have you studied that? You weren't at that meeting? There's major things happening. Major things. And there's been a ton of staff turnover. Do you know our staff? Do you know how credentialed they are and what they're doing right now?
She's
Do you know
a
what their
rocket
specialties
scientist.
are?
Where she just left.
We've got master's degrees, aerospace engineers.
You didn't attend that either.
We've got tons, you just wouldn't even know the types, and we're getting very positive feedback as well. Now, I know you may be hearing all the negative, but we're hearing both. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom as you think it is. Now, yes, there are issues, but we are addressing them actively, proactively. We're not just sitting back
and go into.
as you are portraying on KTBS, in violation of the bylaws, which says, don't go out and speak for the NPC like that. And this is why. You're giving the wrong impression. It is not a fair or accurate impression.
I don't think it's a
May I say
mistake.
something?
I don't think
Yes.
it's a mistake that people take negative things to certain people and not to everybody.
Yeah, may I say something? I think we hear negativism everywhere. Every time you pick up or listen to the news, all you hear on there is MPC. Every time I listen, I turn it off. Why? Because every time you hear Bossier, the developments or whoever you're talking about are not calling me. You understand where I'm coming from? I don't know, but I'm gonna do my best to be there because all I hear, Bossier City this, Bossier City. I came to you and I wanted to know, are we charging people all of this money for a site plan? You have tried to explain to me, oh, no, because that's what they're saying is not the what? Truth. Bessie Smith can't answer that. So I need to go where I can learn and listen to people. I don't know nothing about, I asked you one time back here, why some people may be 1,000 and blah, blah. You tried to explain that to me. I don't know. Now, you understand, but all I hear in Bossier City, it may take them a month to get a site. Over here, now that's the news. Over here, it may take them 3 months. I asked you the other day, why it takes so long? You tried to explain this to Bessie Smith in detail.
Right.
Okay? Just like you were doing I don't know nothing about that because that's not my field. My field is something else. So who you pointing to over there, you may know. Alan may know, but I don't know nothing about. All I know is what I'm hearing on the what?
Right.
News.
Right. Understand.
And each time I hear something, I come to who? You.
Absolutely.
Directly.
And I appreciate
And
that.
you try to explain it to me.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to this meeting, you say when?
Next Wednesday at 1
Next
o'clock.
Wednesday. Now, some of these developers calling you all, I'm wondering why they're not calling Bessie Smith.
They're
You
calling,
understand?
and I'm calling them as
You don't
well.
understand.
I'm talking to
I
them
mean,
too.
I'm contacting them as well. I mean, it's a two-way street. I'm hearing complaints, so instead of asking what the complaint is from someone else, I'm going to the source. And saying, hey, I hear you're having a problem on this
I'm on
particular
a lot of
application, or I'll
boards, and
call
they never
the
been
lawyer
here.
on the case, or whatever, and say,
I
hey, what's
serve on
going
a lot
on?
of boards.
And it's, you know, it's productive. I think it's kind of, we end up usually
And they're
meeting in the
not
middle.
like
Like,
this
things
board.
aren't as bad as I thought, and they can usually be addressed. And, you know, I think we're doing that. I think there's
actually
been a
had
ton of
compliments
changes in our MPC in the last 2 years. I mean, we have had an enormous amount of change.
You inherited this mess.
Right. So I will say this, that when I got here, I wasn't the chairman, and my second meeting was to consider firing the executive director. I wasn't the
That was
chairman.
my first meeting.
Yeah, that was another meeting. And so, I mean, this has not always been my responsibility. I don't know why they didn't do it on Alan's watch. I got here at that time. Don't know why they didn't do it on Leah's watch. Some of you guys were here when y'all hired Mark. I wasn't. I'm just dealing with what I've inherited personally, and until someone says something to me, I can't speak to something by innuendo or secondhand information. And
If
so,
I may, Mr. Chairman.
whoever they have confidence in, I would say you should come and get it taken care of for them because they don't call me.
To
Yes.
that point about the executive director, is it, and anybody can speak to this who's involved, is it that you want him fired, or is it that you don't like the fact that he has a contract? In other words, if he didn't have a contract but he was still here doing a good job, would you want him fired?
According to the KTBS article, they want him to go.
Oh, and I'll speak to that.
Only
I
they can answer
definitely
that
say he
question.
needs to be fired. We need to get a new executive director. It's time.
We know you think that. We do.
Yeah, so that's what,
And it's
you know,
okay.
I don't have to
That's
speak
okay.
in like passive aggressive tones
That's
and
okay.
and all like you were doing. I mean, I'll tell you.
That's okay.
You don't need
But-
to. You've said it many, many times. It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah,
clear.
it's
I'm
Okay.
very aware.
It's clear.
But I wasn't aware that Bessie did. That was news
Did I
to
say
me.
that?
No, but
Okay,
Mr. Young
just
said
checking.
that. I mean, I just thought that was interesting because I did not get that feeling from Bessie personally.
If I spoke erroneous on Miss Bessie's part, I'll apologize to Miss Bessie.
But, you're apologizing privately, but
But you
speaking
go out to the
publicly.
news.
Oh, no, no, no,
apologize.
this has been
So, I
very
mean-
well publicly pointed out to me. This is a public forum, and this is like, because I'm running for office
you
or
know what I'm
something, and I'm
saying,
at
though.
the podium right now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean-
trust me, this is a public forum, this is recorded, and this is all on
And
the
Mr.
record.
Young, I do think
Running
it's
for
interesting
office.
that all of these problems that are coming to us and the complaints that we're getting are somehow my fault and your fault. That's what I think is interesting. You're
It's
you're
not
acting as
just
if
that.
these.
I wouldn't
We're
own it
not
if it
talking
did.
about-
If you didn't think it was
But-
true, I wouldn't own it.
Now, I
We're
want you
just
guys to take
talking
the
about
same
the
That's
media.
called
position.
sarcasm.
We're
Yes.
not talking about all these problems, just the media.
Okay,
That's all
I
we're
want,
talking about.
okay, I want to see you guys hold your ground and plant your feet in.
I will.
When you get to the,
I will.
I saw that on the news.
I will.
That was comical. But,
Thank you.
take this in front of all of the developers and the people that are really creating jobs in the community.
I was almost as funny as Mud and Jeff.
Who's that?
Y'all too.
Oh, do you want to start calling names now?
I said it was like that, kind of an act.
It kind of
No,
sounds
it's
like you're
comical.
calling names, because I can call names if you want to call names, if you want to get
I thought it was
unprofessional.
Mr. Chair,
I'm just trying to
Mr.
match
Chair,
it.
Mr. Chair, if there's no objections, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.
Need to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If you want to talk about, I'll talk about it with you anytime. If you got my cell phone number, I'll give it to you if you don't have it.
Listen, that's
So if
too
you
low
felt
level
like
of
you were-
conversation, man.
How is it too low level of a conversation? How is
You have
that?
to get a representative.
How is that? So you're saying I'm not smart enough?
I agree. This is it right here.
That's not good.
No, I'm just wanted to make
Spend a lot of
sure.
money on this education, man. I get that.
Let's
I'm not.
go,
Yeah.
Sarah, let's go. Oh, I'm going out of here. I don't like things like this. I served on a lot of boards and I've never been on one like this. This is too much to digest.
Nice. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous. Oh, well. Life's a bummer. So, he didn't ask me anything about this zoning case. If he does ask,
I talked to him.
Oh, you did? Okay, good, good.
I explained it to him before the meeting.
Does he understand them?
Yeah, he said so. We didn't really hold up the zoning at all. I said, no, we didn't change it on the map. And the people he was dealing with expected, when they kept looking on the map, they said, well, you're not rezoned, and it was causing problems. But I said,
Wasn't that fun?
But the fact is, basically what I told him to.
No, I don't know if it is or not, it probably is.
Yes, it's recorded until it's adjourned. Every bit of that was recorded.
Every bit of it.
And we'll talk.
Guys, I've been fighting with this fight for quite a while, so it's nothing new. So it may be somewhat shocking to you guys, but it's not to me and Stephen. So it's life in the big city.